What's up, guys? It's Diego from SGN, and this is actually my first video under the new name. So I'm hoping that you guys will stick around and help us improve this community and enjoy the lot more variety that will be coming to you guys on this channel. But right now, it is time for one of our classic shows, the Premier League Aftermath Show, where I break down everything that happened in the weekend's matches, starting off with Huddersfield versus Tottenham, which finished 4-0 for Tottenham. And this wasn't really a surprise result because of the fact that Tottenham were playing away from home. Had they been playing at Wembley, it was probably a bit more likely they would have lost because of the fact that they had that Wembley curse going, and it would have been a lot more interesting for some of the gamblers that watch this stuff. As for Huddersfield, playing at home, yes, they are a decent team. Their big problems coming into this game was the fact that, number one, their offense, while being pretty creative and being relatively versatile, they simply weren't going to be able to throw themselves at Tottenham as much as they want to because of the fact that their midfield had no choice but to help out in defense because of Tottenham's offensive threat. Also, defensively, they have shown that they aren't really capable of stopping some of the weaker teams in the league. So, how are they supposed to stop Dele Alli, Harry Kane, Christian Eriksen, and everybody else in that monstrous lineup? There was just really no way they were going to be able to do that, and it ended up being that's simply what ended up being the case. They were not capable of defending as well enough as a unit to stop Tottenham's infinite amount of power they have to be throwing at Huddersfield. Tottenham, we've seen, man, when they're on their day, they can beat just about any team in Europe. So Huddersfield really had no chance because Tottenham are firing on all cylinders, especially now that Harry Kane is in such phenomenal form. And one of the things I like about Harry Kane is that he isn't one of those young English players that was essentially thrown up into the starting lineup immediately and from then was hyped up as this kind of monster, stuff like that. This guy actually played through most of the lower leagues in English football, so he has developed himself into a very, very strong player. Not just mentally, not just in terms of how good he is skill-wise, but also physically, because in the lower leagues, they beat the hell out of you. Even in the championship, they beat the hell out of you. It's all about how physical you are. And Harry Kane, having been in those lower leagues at a young age, was used to taking that physical punishment that early on and had to develop himself as a man in those leagues, but he also gave him the opportunity to be able to develop his craft to a point where maybe he wasn't as strong physically as those men, but he was at least able to hold them off and use his technique to get around them. So that's, I think, what has really been helping him throughout his adventure in the Premier League to really become this amazing striker. And if you look at what he brings to the table, he's a great poacher. He's great at striking from outside the box. He's really good at bringing his teammates into play, and he's also really, really good at just being a physical presence in the box. So he is a very, very, very important player for Tottenham. And if they can keep him for the long haul, they have a chance to continue to really strive and have success as long as they keep him and also Dele Alli. If they lose him, they might have a bit of a problem because he is without a doubt one of the best English strikers we've ever seen, and he might be on his way to breaking Alan Shearer's records and Wayne Rooney's records as well, because the guy is absolutely amazing. We've seen him, he's averaging like 20, 22 goals a season, so he is tremendous. And if he can keep that up and really keep himself away from injuries a little bit, then there's no doubt about it that this guy has an amazing future ahead of him and probably could leave Tottenham anytime. He could probably go to like Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, wherever the hell he wants to go, he could go. Man United in the Premier League, anywhere he wants to go. Literally, he will find offers, and he will be a welcome presence and jump immediately into a starting lineup because this guy's also only like 23. He has so much upside, and Tottenham are looking tremendous this season with him. In August, he wasn't really doing a whole lot, but that's what he does. In August, he usually sucks he kind of sucks some dick in August, but then once September comes, he absolutely starts lighting people up, and right now, he's just looking in phenomenal form. So any team that comes up against Tottenham are going to have almost guaranteed the same fate as Huddersfield had, and Huddersfield simply weren't going to be capable of doing it because, like I said, offensively they're okay, but defensively they had no chance in hell of surviving an onslaught brought to them by a team as potent as Spurs. Moving on to a game that was a little bit less interesting, but definitely important in terms of relegation battle, we have West Ham versus Swansea. They'll finish 1-0 for West Ham, who are picking themselves up a little bit in terms of results. They started off the season with, honestly, kind of a hard schedule, losing to United and having a couple other games that were pretty difficult after that. But they are continuing to pick themselves up and gain some momentum here and there, and beating a team like Swansea, who are in the midst of a relegation battle with them. And yes, it is early to be talking about relegation, but technically it's not, because West Ham have really been having a lot of problems this season. They conceded 10 goals in their first three games. So they really needed to build up some momentum, and now they are starting to do so. Obviously, they lost recently to Tottenham as well. I think that was 2 weeks ago. Maybe it was last week. I think it was last week. But still, so they have been having an up and down season, but I think that as long as they beat the small teams, which is realistically all you can ask for a team like West Ham, they definitely have what it takes to at least get themselves to around 15th, which is, I think, definitely way lower than they should be. I think they should be around like 10th. But for sure, they're going to be able to save themselves as long as they continue to beat the teams around them. And Swansea are a team that realistically, they really needed to beat. Because, as I've said before, a lot of their fans are talking about how this might be their greatest ever Swansea team. But they just lost their best player. So how the hell is this their best team? And the results are showing it, because they are doing even worse than last season, I think, at least. I can't remember how bad they were doing last season. I know they were doing pretty bad. But I think that more or less right now they are pretty much on the same level, but they actually might have less points. And still, West Ham are a team, like I said, that have a lot more potential than they're showing right now. And I do think that they have the capabilities of still finding a way to get themselves towards mid-table. They just need to really figure out what's going on in that locker room. Is Stamford Bridge the problem? Is something going on with the players that maybe don't want to play for him? What exactly is it? Once they find that out, I think they have the quality, and honestly, I think they have the money to do so too, because they also have quite a bit of cash in there. They have spent some money on some players, like they brought in Arnautovic for quite a bit of money. They've brought in some players, so it's not a matter of them not spending the money. It's a matter of simply finding out what the hell the problem is. As for Swansea, honestly, if I look at that team, I don't see them staying up in the Premier League. At least I see them having a very, very hard time. If you look at it, offensively, they don't really have anything. They lost some of their better players. They lost Sigurdsson, who was their best player. They lost Llorente to Tottenham, which is definitely another loss. They also lost, who else did they lose? They lost a few players. I think maybe they lost one other than that. But they also brought in, they brought Renato Sanchez in. But is he realistically going to be a player at 18 years old that's really going to change their season and give them what it takes to survive, essentially, and stay in the Premier League one more year? I really don't think so. I haven't seen enough of him lately to really believe that he has that type of quality. He is a very promising young player. He's a very good player. I just don't think that he has it right now. He doesn't have the ability to really give them what they need to survive. So unfortunately for Swansea, I don't really see them improving. Yes, they'll get a few results here and there, but as of right now, I haven't seen enough of them in terms of quality that I can really feel confident that they will improve. Whereas West Ham, they are most certainly on the rise. And now we have the little international break, so they might have a chance of breaking momentum, possibly, training a little bit harder, because I don't think any of their players, maybe except for Mikel Antonio and maybe a couple others, I don't think any of them will be involved in national team play. So they have a chance to sit down together, take a week or two to just figure out what's going on and reset and really make some improvements, because we saw what happened in Arsenal's defense after an international break. So if Arsenal's defense was that bad and can fix it, then we definitely know that West Ham, who have a pretty decent team, can definitely figure out a way to improve themselves pretty exponentially just in a couple of weeks. Roy Hodgson has had 2 games, and he faced both Manchester clubs, and both of them ended in pretty much the same exact way. City scored more and more goal than us, but we still beat them down pretty much to the same degree. It was a 4-0 win against Crystal Palace, and obviously Roy Hodgson, coming into Crystal Palace, probably couldn't expect to really be able to do anything against these 2 clubs. These definitely are the type of matches where you need to be judging what his managerial tenure is going to be like at Crystal Palace, because of the fact that, let's just be real, he's playing against 2 teams that probably would beat any other team in the league. So it's really hard to judge them. And, City and United have been scoring an amazing amount of goals. I don't know exactly how much they're both at, but it's been tremendous. So both teams are just really on top form. And City are actually really, really looking impressive. And United have their first major test against Liverpool next weekend. But still, these are teams that Crystal Palace shouldn't be competing with. So it's really hard to expect them to do so. So Roy Hodgson, for the meantime, definitely gets a pass in terms of what results we saw. I don't think he should be already being sacked or anything like that. But we will start to see in the next couple of weeks, when he has a bit of an easier schedule and he's facing teams that he should be competing with, we'll see exactly what's in store for him. But realistically, a 4-0 win was pretty much what the doctor ordered, so I don't expect a whole lot of drama to be coming out of Crystal Palace. As for United, having seen Crystal Palace lose 5-0 to City the weekend before, they needed to go out there and really show that they are pretty much on the same level of offensive skill as City. And we really did. Lukaku got a goal, maybe got 2. I can't remember exactly scored. I think Rashford scored 1. So we got plenty of goals in, and our strikers are really looking good. Absolutely looking good. No, Fellaini got 2. That's what it was. Fellaini got 2. Lukaku got 1, and I can't remember who got the other one for some reason. Anyway, still, we've been playing really, really well, and offensively we are looking extremely dangerous. And I'm hoping that this stuff will continue after the international break, because we saw last time there was an international break, what happened? We came back and we drew 2-2 with Stoke. And we face a very tough test of going to Anfield upon our return on the 14th of October. That's going to be a very, very tough game, because at Anfield, Liverpool are always pretty dangerous. And yes, they just drew 1-1 to Newcastle, but still, we're talking about Liverpool here, who, when it comes to a match against United, they put everything they have into those matches. So it's going to be a very, very tough match. But I'm feeling very, very confident coming into this. I think defensively we are amazing compared to them. We are a million times better than them defensively. So we have the capabilities of stopping them as long as our fullbacks are able to sort of stifle the runs of, say, Salah, Mane, etc. As long as we can stop them, and Coutinho as well, obviously, then we should be fine. Because offensively, we are a fucking powerhouse, and Liverpool have shown time and time again that their defense is not capable of defending a team like fucking Newcastle this past weekend, let alone a team like United who have so much more offensive threat than they do. So this should be a pretty comfortable win for us on paper, because we are looking like a lot better than them. But of course, playing at Anfield, it's never easy between Liverpool and United, so we'll see what happens there. But I'm feeling very, very confident. Considering how iffy the last few seasons have been, this is actually the first time I've really, really been confident about doing extremely well throughout a season. Because like last season, I predicted us to win the title, but I wasn't feeling extremely confident going into, especially at this point of the season. But right now, I think we're realistically going to be the top team in this league, because City have shown that defensively they do have some weaknesses, but I think that right now we've been showing that we have the full package. And if we can bring in maybe like one or two more okay players, not like amazing players, we don't necessarily need any game-changing starting lineup players, but we could use one or two players to go on the bench to really fill out this roster for the Champions League lineups and for playing in the small cups and things like that. And that would really, in my opinion, guarantee us a title, essentially. On to a game that was probably the most boring of the weekend, Bournemouth versus Leicester, a 0-0 draw, which is actually a result that does definitely favor Bournemouth, because coming into this game, they'd been having a bit of a hard run, whereas Leicester City, as always, on the counterattack, are dangerous. They can do some pretty good things against just about any team. I think they were coming off of a 3-2 loss to Liverpool, which obviously isn't a great result, but it's still a decent one that they showed some quality in. So Bournemouth were definitely going to be on the back foot the whole game because of the fact that just Leicester are so dangerous that they were always going to have to be worried a little bit about being exposed on the counterattack, which is something that they do kind of struggle with. However, the two teams pretty much just balanced each other out. There was really not a whole lot to talk about. I think this is kind of a really disappointing result for Leicester, because going into Bournemouth, a team that does play some good football, play offensive, they would have had a little bit of space to run into, but they simply weren't able to exploit it. And Jamie Vardy and Mahrez haven't really been at the very top of their form. Vardy hasn't been playing bad. He has been getting quite a few goals this season, but Mahrez, man, he has just really dropped off ever since that Premier League title-winning season. Like last season, he was good, but he wasn't anything special. He was like a mediocre / decent, pretty good winger in the Premier League. He wasn't anything like particularly special. It is kind of interesting to see what exactly happened to Leicester over the past couple seasons, because they seem like a shell of what they used to be. And I understand, yes, that was just an extremely lucky, and it's just pretty much the perfect campaign for Leicester. But still, you would expect them to at least be able to compete, to at least be able to beat a team like Bournemouth, who, with all due respect, aren't an amazing team. They should be able to beat a team like Bournemouth. So for them not to have won that game, it's probably extremely disappointing for their fans and for the players in general. They really should have gone out there and got themselves a win, because realistically, this is a team that should be, at least based on paper and things like that, that should be in the running for a Europa League spot. I don't think that they're quite capable of doing that. I think that Everton are a better team, even though the results aren't really showing it. I think there are a few teams here and there that probably could give them a run for their money in terms of finishing in the Europa League spots, but I think that realistically that is an objective of theirs, because of the fact that, last season they did pretty well in the Champions League. I think they got to the quarterfinals. So they should be aiming to continue to get themselves into Europe. And I think that they do have the players to do so. They brought in Iheanacho as well, who's, in my opinion, one of the better strikers, one of the best young strikers for sure in the Premier League. So they have the players to be able to at least compete for that spot, but they just simply haven't been able to reach their potential and really succeed in this league, which is definitely a big problem for them, and they need to figure out what's going on. But as for Bournemouth, I think this is a really solid result. And with the international break now, they can take a chance to just figure out what's going on, much like West Ham, figure out what their problem is, fix it, and come back refreshed and ready to go coming into the next matches. And as unpredictable as always, Stoke City went out there and beat Southampton 2-1. This is a game that I can't remember exactly what result I predicted, but I do think that I had Stoke winning it, or at least it being a draw, because Southampton went to Old Trafford and they had a pretty good game. No, we were at St. Mary's. They had a really good game at St. Mary's against United. So I was expecting them to at least put on a pretty good fight. And realistically, they kind of did. It was a 2-1 loss, so it's not like they lost big time. But still, I expect them to be a bit more dominant against Stoke, because they had a really good game against us where we were on the back foot quite a bit, and maybe there were some signs of fatigue and stuff like that, but still, they were doing a really good job, and it might just be the classic problem that Southampton sort of tend to have. In other words, they really get themselves motivated for for the big games, but have a hard time getting themselves pumped up for the small games, and that probably cost them in the end. But at the end of the day, man, they did have a decent match. But Stoke City, as always, like I said, probably the most unpredictable team in the league. They managed to go out there and they managed to get a win against a team that's more or less on their level, and that is always important for them. We're talking about a team that, on their day, can beat some of the tougher teams, or at least make it really real hard for them. Just because they lost 4-0 to, what was it, Chelsea, doesn't really mean that they're a bad team. They've had some really good results this season, especially that 2-2 draw with us and that 1-0 win over Arsenal. So they are a tough team, and they are definitely in the running for a Europa League spot as long as they beat teams like Southampton. Because realistically, they have the capabilities of doing that, and they definitely could use that boost of money that would come from the Europa League. And I think that's probably more or less in their crosshairs this season, because having brought in Jesse Rodriguez, who for some reason in FIFA is only a 77, I think he's at least an 80, right? You let me know in the comment section down below. I think that having brought him in, that is a pretty solid sign of ambition. And yes, they did sign sell Arnautovic, but we've seen with West Ham that Arnautovic wasn't really that great of a player. He's pretty good on his day, but for the most part, he's pretty inconsistent. So I think they did a good job of getting rid of him and bringing in some money. They've also done a pretty decent job, keeping Shaqiri. So they do have a pretty good team. They have a good team. And I also like that Choupo-Moting guy that plays on the left. He is really, really good. On my ultimate team, he's doing some pretty good work for me as well. So I'm pretty happy with the fact that Stoke City do have a good team. And for the fact that Mark Hughes is there, they are playing actually some really good football, especially on the counterattack. Having Hesse and having Shaqiri, they have a lot of really good quality, whereas recently, in recent years at least, they used to have only physicality, but now they also have physicality and quality, which is always fun to see. Having a player like Joe Allen, who can also come off the bench and is actually pretty good at moving the ball around, that's also pretty helpful for them. So I do think that Stoke City have a lot of really good things coming for them this season. West Brom versus Watford was a pretty interesting game. It definitely was one of the more entertaining and high-scoring games. It was a 2-2 draw, which is usually not what the doctor orders when it comes to Tony Pulis. Usually he's pretty good at keeping his opponents to one goal at the very most when he's playing at home. Away from home, maybe he tends to slip up a little bit. I think they've only won like 2 games away from home in like the last 30 to 40 games. So he has a pretty bad, they have a pretty bad record away from home, but at home, they are pretty damn solid. So I expected them to have a little bit of a hard time against Watford, because Watford have been really, really looking good this season. They brought in some really good players, and overall, their football has been really high quality. They have some good results, and they have been really exceeding expectations based on what everybody put on them at the start of the season. They are looking a lot better than what just about anybody expected them to be. So I expected West Brom to go out there and struggle a little bit, and they did indeed do that. It was a tough game for both teams, but West Brom were able to hold them off and definitely get themselves a good draw at home. I would say that this is a result that probably favors West Brom a bit more than Watford based on how things were going for them. West Brom, yes, they do well, but they aren't necessarily a team that's haven't really improved this season. I don't see them as an improvement based on last season. I see them kind of having lost a few steps here and there because they did lose Berahino, so that is kind of a big loss for them. However, Watford getting a 2-2 draw away from home is always very, very good. Very, very good. Especially against a team like West Brom, who at home are always very tough. A lot of times teams go out there and they lose to West Brom. So for them to get that nice little draw, I think that is a pretty strong boost in confidence for them, especially because, what was it, like a couple weeks ago, they got that massive 6-0 beatdown by City, or was it the week before this? Can't remember exactly when it was, if that was 2 weeks ago or last week, but still, Watford needed to get themselves some confidence, and I think that a 2-2 draw at a tough stadium like West Brom's is definitely a momentum builder. And now with the international break, much like West Ham as well, they have the opportunity to sort of recalibrate things, refresh, and get themselves going. Because the problem with a team like Watford is that they don't really have a lot of depth in their bench. Their starting lineup is pretty good, but their depth in bench simply isn't there. So you always have to have these major players going out there and giving everything they have week in, week out, which does sort of weaken out the team in the long haul. So this is definitely a very, very good situation for them. And also for West Brom, I think that they do definitely need to figure some things out, and this will give them an opportunity to do so. On to the big game of the weekend. It was Chelsea versus Manchester City, and this was a game that really, really showed how much power Man City have. I mean, they didn't just go out there and beat Chelsea. They went out there and dismantled Chelsea. Yes, it only finished 1-0, but they had so many chances, and they looked so good offensively. Defensively, they had a couple of iffy moments right there, but realistically, man, Chelsea didn't really do anything to really threaten them. I think they had like 5 shots on goal, or no, just 5 shots in general all match. So they didn't really have a lot of danger situations there, Man City. So they were just really, really, really solid throughout that entire match. And realistically, it could have finished like 4-0 or 5-0 or 5-1, something like that. There was just so much power there from Man City. And this really did show that they are ready to go out there and compete with the elite clubs, not just in the Premier League, but also in Europe. I mean, they looked amazing. And for me to say that, that really is, I mean, I'm always honest in my opinions, but I mean, to look that good, I was not expecting that. I was expecting for some reason a 3-2 win for Chelsea, like I said, but I just I do not know how the hell I possibly came to that conclusion, especially considering the fact that David Luiz was out, so they also were missing one of their best center backs. So it was just one of those games, man, that you could really see a team clicking on all cylinders, and even without Agüero, they are looking amazing. That Gabriel Jesus kid is tremendous. He has a lot of quality and has a very, very big future ahead of him. I don't know exactly how long Agüero's going to be out for, like 2 months. I think he has fractured ribs, so he's going to be out for quite a while because that really is a painful injury. But still, and that's also the big problem that Agüero has always had in his career. He always has an injury, whether he gets injured on the pitch or off the pitch or something like that. He always tends to get hurt for a couple months, and that really has stifled the really impressive growth of his career. Because even right now, he has an amazing career. All right, if he retired today, he would go down as one of the greatest Premier League strikers of all time. He has, if I'm not mistaken, the greatest goals per minute ratio in Premier League history. He is a tremendous player, except for Iheanacho, but Iheanacho has played so few games and always coming off the bench, so it's hard to really judge for him. But still, Agüero has an amazing record. He's a tremendous striker, but he misses a lot of games. I think that if you look back on the last few seasons, had he been fit throughout the entire season for City, they probably would have won maybe one more Premier League at least. Maybe that year that Leicester won, they probably would have won the title. Anyway, apart from that, man, this game, like I said, really showed how much quality City have, and they're looking like a team that could really go all the way domestically and abroad. And I'm not sure if they really have the mentality yet for winning the Champions League, because we've seen that they do struggle to really show up in the big matches against teams like even last year. I think it was PSG or whoever knocked them out. I can't remember if it was PSG or Barcelona. You know, who was it? No, Monaco. Monaco knocked them out. And that's the team that, realistically, man, shouldn't have really been able to compete with them. And yes, they won the French league, but they didn't do very much against Juventus. So City should have been able to smack them around. But they just weren't able to even get close to doing that. It was a close competitive situation, but they really shouldn't have been able to, they shouldn't have struggled that much against such a young team. So I think that they might still have some weaknesses mentally, but right now, at least in the Premier League, they look like a team that could really go out there and push for that title until the very end. And if United don't keep stride with them, or if we drop off a little bit and they continue to pump up, then it's going to be really, really hard to catch back up to them, because I really don't see them dropping a whole lot of points this season. This is going to be a record-breaking season, in my opinion, for both United and City in terms of points scored and all that stuff. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting season. Very, very intense season between the two clubs. And I mean, I'm really, really impressed with what they did. I mean, I have to give a lot of compliments to what they did. And obviously, I don't like giving them compliments, but I have to do it. I have to give credit when credit is due, man. They did an amazing job in that game, and I was really, really impressed. And I do actually look forward to seeing if they can break that curse. I hope not. I hope they can. I hope they do continue to struggle in the Champions League. But I look forward to seeing what they can do against some of the better teams. Because offensively, man, this is one of the most fun teams to watch. And I hate seeing them score. But you have to admit, the way they play football is tremendous. As for Chelsea, losing to City isn't the biggest loss in the world. Obviously, Antonio Conte is going to be very, very upset about that, and he's been talking quite often about how he wants to go back to Italy, probably because he doesn't like how tough the Premier League is. It's too tough for him. We know this guy. He loves winning, but as soon as things start to get a little bit tough for him, he snaps. He snaps. He doesn't have a lot of patience. He's kind of a mental case. He really is just a mental case. We saw even with Juventus, when he didn't get what he wanted, he just left immediately, and he was a legend of that club, and the way he left was actually disgraceful. If I talk to Juventus fans, and there's a lot of them here, they pretty much all say the same thing. Conte, a great player. As a manager, he can pretty much go fuck himself. He's pretty much ruined the ties that he had to the club. They do not give a shit about him anymore. He was one of their idols. He was like a tier below Del Piero, and Del Piero is pretty much their god. He's Ryan Giggs or Paul Scholes for us. He is pretty much their god. And Conte was like one tier behind that. And he has somehow been able to completely burn that bridge and pretty much become one of the most hated managers out there because of the way he just left them like that. It was just really, really, really atrocious. And I can see something very similar happening to Chelsea. And obviously, the Chelsea fans, they like him because he won them a title. But I don't think they really love him. So I don't think they'd be upset about him leaving or anything like that. But I definitely see him having a similar situation where things blow up in his face and he leaves immediately. I just see that happening because Antonio Conte, I like him. All right, I like the intensity he brings, but I just don't know if he is mentally capable of resisting in a league as intense and as just heavy on the head as the Premier League. We've seen a lot of managers collapse under the pressure. Rafa Benitez at one point with Liverpool collapsed under it and was just going on tirades, constantly talking about facts and stuff like that. So if something like that happens to Conte, and I think it will, then we're definitely going to see the end of him and possibly going back to Italy. In my opinion, he'll probably sign for Milan because, Allegri used to be a manager of Milan, then he went to Juventus. So I don't think that Juventus is ever going to be free of free. I don't think they're going to free up from Allegri anytime soon, unless Allegri decides to like take hold of Chelsea, which kind of seems kind of strange. But I think that Milan with Montella, but the fact that they're struggling really badly, is probably going to be the next step in Antonio Conte's career at the end of the season. But unless he sacks himself, unless he resigns, I don't see him being sacked before the end of the season. In terms of the result, like I said, I don't think it's really that bad of a deal for Chelsea. They didn't really come into this game as the favorites, and I don't think they left it any more, like, I guess you say, any more beat down. Yes, of course, the way that they lost wasn't very good. They took a lot of they were taking quite a beating, to be honest with you. They were not looking very good, and City were just looking heads and shoulders above them in terms of quality and just in terms of drive. So I think that is a big problem for them, but I do think that they still are one of those teams that are going to be aiming for third place, and I think they will achieve that situation. Well, maybe not third, but I think they'll achieve without a doubt the top four, which is probably what they're realistically going to be aiming for, because I don't think they really believe that they can win the title in that locker room. I don't think anybody in that locker room, including the manager, really believes that they can win the title. Yes, they have a lot of good quality players, but their depth simply isn't there. They're going to be struggling once the Champions League really starts to kick into full gear, and once all the other cups really start to kick in. I just see a lot of problems for Chelsea, and I just don't think it's going to be a very good season for them in terms of domestic success. And Arsenal continue to not be Arsenal by beating Brighton 2-0. A lot of times we've seen Arsenal over the past few years really struggle against the small teams, and that's pretty much been what cost them when it comes to title races in last season in terms of actually getting in the top four. This season they are improving, and at the beginning of the season they had a really, really, really bad time defending. But they have been continuing to keep more clean sheets, and they've actually been pretty solid in defense. So that is something to give some compliments to Arsene Wenger. I don't know how long it's going to last, because Brighton definitely isn't a team that you look at and be like, okay, this team can really threaten. Because I was really, really unimpressed by them watching this match. The only thing I can say is that the defense isn't bad. Other than that, there's really not a whole lot I can say that's positive about Brighton. Offensively, they don't play any good football whatsoever. They just pretty much play long ball, so very direct, but like not in a good way. Direct, like just long balls and just very tough passes, not really developing play in a very positive way. They just don't play very good football at all. So I don't like that. I don't like to watch them, at all, realistically. I don't see anything really positive coming for them this season. I think they're pretty much going to be the number one team to get relegated. As well as Arsenal, they are looking really, really good. I think they probably could have won this game a bit more, but Brighton did do a pretty decent job of defending themselves and not conceding a lot of goals. So that was pretty decent for them, but other than that, they really didn't do anything. Arsenal, in my opinion, they really need to figure out what exactly they're going to want to do, because Alexis Sanchez, he's playing, but he doesn't really seem like he's 100% dedicated, which is something that I thought he would probably actually be. For some reason, he hasn't been hitting that form, and it's probably because of the fact that the fans are kind of on his back. The manager probably doesn't exactly want him there because of what happened. He definitely doesn't want to be there. So I think that in January, we will definitely see Alexis Sanchez leave. Whether it's a trade deal, like I've been seeing some rumors today on Eurosport, I don't know exactly if that's going to happen. Like I've been hearing about a swap deal. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. But regardless of if he gets sold or if he gets traded to some other player, then without a doubt he will be leaving Arsenal. Because right now, even though he is giving a lot of effort, he just isn't capable, at least hasn't been able to reach Alexis Sanchez type of form. And I think that without him, Arsenal definitely need to find a new player that can really give them that kind of spark. And yes, they will definitely make some decent money off of Alexis Sanchez, but not as much as they would have had they sold him in the summer, which is definitely a big bummer for them. I'm loving it because I just love it. The way Arsenal and Arsene Wenger consistently blow it. It's always hilarious to see. But realistically, man, they need to figure this out and get themselves a good player that can really bring them that spark that Alexis Sanchez can bring in. I don't know exactly who the hell they could possibly bring in, because Alexis Sanchez on his day is a phenomenal player. He works extremely hard as well, which is always good, because even when he's not playing well, he is always giving his best, which is something that you can't really say for a lot of the elite players, especially somebody like Ozil, who is on the Arsenal team, who realistically, when it really counts, he does not show up. So that's a big loss for Arsenal. It is a big loss, and they are pretty much already playing without him because, like I said, he hasn't been looking like Alexis Sanchez. So they need to figure that out. They need to find out maybe if he's better off just being on the bench. But realistically, if they leave him on the bench, they don't really have anybody better than him to put in the lineup. So they need to figure that out right now. So I do think that it was a decent win for Arsenal. Nothing special. A 2-0 win against Brighton. Probably could have done better. But still, a win is a win. And they probably won't be too upset about that, considering how bad the start of the season was going for them. And the losers of the weekend are, without a doubt, Everton, who once again have managed to lose a game that they absolutely should not have lost. Like, it's one thing to lose to Spurs, one thing to lose to United. It's even one thing to lose to Atalanta in the Europa League. It's a completely different story to lose at home to Burnley. And yes, alright, Sean Dyche has been having them play pretty well. All right, Burnley are playing some pretty decent football. Here and there, they do have some pretty decent games. But Everton, man, realistically, at home, at Goodison Park, where you've pretty much always been a very tough team to beat, with the players you have, you're telling me you're not even capable of drawing against Burnley. I mean, this is going to be an absolutely bad season for Everton if they do not figure this stuff out. Because their defense is just atrocious right now. Offensively, they can't do shit. They can barely score goals, and they can pretty much only score, like last week, based on, or what was it, the Europa League, based on some lucky-ass goals when the defense makes mistakes. If Everton continue to play like that, there's no guarantees that they will finish better than 15th. Because they are just looking atrocious. And yes, they will get a few results here and there, but as of right now, they are looking really, really poor. And I think it might be a case of having to fire Koeman. Because we saw with Southampton, there was a little period there where he was sort of dropping off in results. It might be, now that he's at Everton, he's lost Lukaku, he lost the one guy that was really guaranteeing him results. Because Lukaku and all the Everton fans were talking a whole lot of shit about him. His first touch is garbage. He doesn't put in a lot of effort for the team. Yeah, well, guess what, bitch? He was the only reason that you were doing anything whatsoever. So now that he's gone, I bet you guys feel like a blowout of idiots for talking shit about him, huh? Realistically, the only guy that was keeping you afloat, the guy that got you to the Europa League, because without him, God knows, you would be nowhere near the Europa League. And I don't even believe in God, but he even fucking knows it. He doesn't even exist, and he fucking knows it. And so for Lukaku to have left, and you guys have talked so much shit about you, literally your best player, if not your very best player of all time, it's just ridiculous. It is ridiculous. I mean, this guy literally saved them in so many situations. But anyway, that's beside the point. This season, Everton need to find out whether Koeman is the problem or whether there's simply a big lack of quality in that team. And with the amount of money they spent off that Lukaku deal, they need to be able to have the quality that they pretty much invested in. Sigurdsson needs to wake the fuck up. He's been playing atrociously. Who else? Wayne Rooney, yes, they didn't really pay for anything for him. They aren't even paying his wages. But he hasn't been playing great. Well, you can't really expect Wayne Rooney to play great because of the last few seasons. He hasn't shown that he is capable of playing great week in, week out. He can have a good game here and there, but he isn't going to be a player that's really going to guarantee you a ton of points every single week. So Everton should not have expected him to be that player. They need to figure out what exactly is going on. Bring in more players maybe? I don't know. Bring in a striker because this Sandro guy, as well as he did at Barcelona and things like that, Las Palmas, he simply isn't showing that he's a Premier League quality striker. He just doesn't seem to have it. Because just because you're a decent player that grew up with a decent team, that does not mean that you are going to be a Premier League proven player. There are a lot of players that come into the Premier League and they struggle big time. It's a very different league from Spain. Very, very different league, and he has not shown that he's adapted to it yet. I would give him a couple more months, but if he's not good in January, bring in a new striker for sure. Because this guy's simply not cutting it, and he might not ever cut it for Everton. As for Burnley, man, great result. Awesome result. This is probably their second best result of the season after obviously beating Chelsea. Tremendous. This is the type of game that they need to do, because in the long run, they are going to be struggling for relegation. And to beat teams like Everton, beat teams like Chelsea, these are results that absolutely are game changers for their season. Anytime a team that's going to be battling for relegation can beat a team in the top 10 and above, that's always massive for them, especially if we're talking about a team like Chelsea and a team like Everton, who are realistically Europa League level players, quality teams at least. Chelsea are easily Champions League quality teams, definitely title contenders as well. Everton, definitely not title contenders, definitely not Champions League contenders, but definitely Europa League contenders. So for them to get results against two teams that are without a doubt better than them is massive, and I'm really, really glad to see them improving. I think that Sean Dyche is a very, very good manager, and I hope that he will eventually get a really, really good job, because I think that is probably something he deserves. And the last match of the weekend is probably my favorite one, except for United's 4-0 win, and that is Newcastle 1, Liverpool 1, because guess what, bitches? The Scousers have once again dropped points in a game that they should not have dropped points in. I don't know exactly what I predicted. I think I predicted a draw, but I'm not 100% sure. I meant to predict like a 2-1 win for Liverpool. But realistically, if you look at what happened in the game, it was completely predictable. Newcastle, with Rafa Benitez, play a very organized style, especially when they know they're going to have to be defending for the most part against a team like Liverpool, who definitely leave a lot of spaces at the back. All right? Liverpool, as good as they are attacking, they are only as good as their gegenpress works. Essentially, if that doesn't work, they're going to have a really, really hard time. And it didn't really work against Newcastle because they were just very organized. And they were making it very, very difficult for them to be broken down. Liverpool were only able to break them down once. And yes, Newcastle's goal was kind of lucky. It was an amazing pass. But realistically, I don't think it was an amazing pass from Jonjo Shelvey. I think it was just an atrocious piece of defending from Matip and Lovren. But essentially, this is what happens. All right, about at the halfway line, Matip is right here, center back, and Lovren. They're separated by what? I don't know, 5 to 10 yards. Jonjo Shelvey, about midway between the half line and his own goal, he sends a through ball straight in to who was the striker? To Jose Lu. Great ball, right? But if your defense, if your two center backs are able to be split in by a pass coming in that predictably, and a guy like Jose Lu who isn't exactly known for his pace, that really shows that your defense is simply atrocious. Like, I haven't seen defending this bad in years from Liverpool. And I remember when they played City, what was it, like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, there was just a through pass that absolutely sliced their defense. So this is a problem that they have consistently. And this is a problem that they haven't really shown that they are capable of fixing. And this is down to Jurgen Klopp, because the guy, week in, week out, and season out, shows that defensively, he is not able to really find out what exactly is wrong with his team. He doesn't seem to have that ability to fix defensive problems, and he consistently has with defensive problems. We even saw it with Borussia Dortmund. And there he had Mats Hummels, he had Subotic, he had amazing defenders. All right, he had amazing defenders. He had like Blachikowski, Schmelzer. He had a really, really good team there. And with Liverpool, he doesn't have quite as good fullbacks. Definitely has Klein. I don't think he's even playing. They have Matip is okay. They have Lovren, who is definitely not okay. So they definitely don't have the defensive players that can really save his ass. And right now, Jurgen Klopp is continuing to show that he is not capable of leading this Liverpool team to success. Everybody was like, okay, Jurgen Klopp's here. He might be the team. He might be the guy that gets Liverpool back on top of the perch. There's no way in hell, man. Jurgen Klopp hasn't even shown that he's even remotely capable of getting this Liverpool team into really title contention. Last year, what were they? I don't know how many points they were behind Chelsea. They were quite a few points, but they were never realistically looking like they were really, really competitive. There was that 1 year back when Brendan Rodgers was there, but other than that, Liverpool have continued to look like a pretty mediocre team. You know, I'm not talking about like a team that is bad, like top 10. I'm talking about a team like they're borderline Champions League team. I don't even know if they are. They might, in my opinion, they aren't even going to finish in the Champions League spots this season. But I mean, they are borderline capable of finishing in the Champions League spots. Like top 4 is a remote possibility for them. I don't think that Jurgen Klopp realistically has the capabilities of leading this team anywhere high. And Newcastle really showed if you defend against them with a lot of organization and hit them pretty decently on the break, you are going to be able to give them a lot of problems. And that's going to be a continued problem for Liverpool for quite a while now, ever since Jurgen Klopp came in, and realistically even under Brendan Rodgers. I just think that they haven't figured out exactly what the problems are for the team. And as long as that continues, they will not be contenders, which realistically, the Liverpool fans want them to be title contenders. Jurgen Klopp definitely wants them to be title contenders, as well as the players. And it just doesn't look like they are capable of doing that whatsoever. So I don't think it's going to be a very good season for them. I think that overall, they're going to be really struggling big time. And this is just going to continue to be like that. And Newcastle, you know, I wasn't overly impressed with them over the past few weeks. Yes, they had a nice little 3-game win streak, and then they lost the last one. But this one was actually a bit more impressive, because it really showed that, yes, they are managed very well by a guy like Rafa Benitez, who is very good at organizing his team. But they also have a lot of heart, because there were moments in this game where they could have broken, and they could have just allowed Liverpool to run them over. They could have, but they didn't. They didn't. They went out there, they continued to fight, they continued to stay very, very organized, they continue to do exactly what the manager wanted them to do. And in the end, they got the prize. They got the 1 point, which they were desperately looking for. It was an amazing point for them. Definitely something that nobody expected them to really be able to do. And they went out there and they were still able to do it. An amazing performance by them. And I definitely think that this could be a huge moment in them for their season. Because, much like Burnley, who beat Everton, it's one thing to do well against the small teams. It's a very different story to do well against one of the teams that you shouldn't be competing with. And that's exactly what they did against Liverpool. I don't think that they were capable of really beating Liverpool, because they did have a few chances, but Liverpool also had a few good chances here and there, and Elliott did make a couple good saves. But I think that realistically, getting a draw in that game was not just a great result, but it was also an amazing show of character and heart for the team, and something that will really show them that they have what it takes to do well against some of the lesser teams than Liverpool, and they can really go out there and beat some of the teams like that and get themselves more points than they probably thought they could have, because coming into this league, they had a hard time in the championship. They did not play well. Yes, they were champions, but they were not a solid team. They had a lot of problems, all right? They had a really big amount of problems. So coming into this league, I don't know exactly how much confidence they had, especially seeing Benitez always complaining that they simply weren't bringing in the players that he wanted to be able to really improve this team and make it capable of doing well in the Premier League. So I think that they probably did have quite a bit of a lack of confidence. But now, having had such a good result against Liverpool, having had that 3-game win streak, this shows the Newcastle players that they are simply capable of doing well in this league, and that could be the driving force that helps them reach better than the top 15 that I predicted. Alright guys, I'm off to play some FIFA, so if you enjoyed the video, please suck the shit out of that like button, pride style. Also, let me know in the comment section down below who impressed you the most this weekend. Also guys, please share the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That's always helpful, and I'm extremely grateful to anybody who does that. I've been Diego from SGN, and I will see you in the next video.